So we begin. Yoram, you begin.
Yes, yes. And I will say that some of what we will share we'll do in spontaneous speaking, and some I will read from pre-written paper, and we will collect questions that you can put on the chat. And we will leave some time for questions or responses or sharing later on. So let's start. Hello, I
Just
am.
one small remark. It's just a small comment, if I may, Yoram.
Go ahead.
Is it okay if people ask questions in the middle of the presentation? Would you prefer them to wait until you finish, or?
If they put on the chat, I will not be able to read while I'm speaking, but I could collect and answer before we continue. So
Okay. So you prefer comments on the chat, and then every several minutes you will stop and relate to them?
yeah.
Okay.
And as I was, hello everyone. Thank you for being here. It's very special. Yaron and I gave such a lecture and presentation a year ago, so it's the second time. I'm Yoram Galli and Yaron Yagil with me. We are colleagues and friends here from Israel, and we represent a large team which includes additional 3 highly estimated graduate social work students from Tel Hai College, Guy Alterman, Maya Baron, and Adil Maul. To begin with, we share with you our best hopes from the SF24 Worldwide Gathering and specifically from our session. In our presentation, we suggest integrating George Kelly's repertory grid with solution-focused practice. The repertory grid is a methodology for conceptualizing and recording clients' subjective perceptions of their living experiences. In our presentation, we will briefly describe one possible way to combine this methodology in a solution-focused therapeutic session. Our hope in this context is that at the end of the presentation, participants will provide us with feedback about such an integration and add their own reflection about possible benefits, constraints, and limitations. Finally, perhaps someone will be tempted to join us as a partner in further reflecting upon and experimenting this integration of the repertory grid in solution-focused practice.
Wonderful. So it's an experiment, and we would like to share with you, and we would like to hear your voices and perhaps find partners in further exploring it. A few very several words about the team. The first 3 authors, Guy Alterman, Maya Baron, and Adi Malul, they're all the 3 of them are social work students undertaking a solution-focused therapy seminar, studying solution-focused research. They are led by me. I am a senior lecturer at the Tel Hai College. And their specific task was to learn George Kelly's repertory grid and check its suitability for use as an outcome measurement tool for assessing change in SF therapy. Dr. Yoram Galli joined the team as a consultant to contribute from his knowledge and expertise in working with teams and manager. This is his specialty in organizational settings. Yoram?
So this presentation suggests the integration of George Kelly's repertory grid technique into solution-focused practice. It offers a structured yet flexible approach for documenting clients' subjective perceptions of their world and of the therapeutic process. Although it may be utilized for clinical purposes, as originally suggested by George Kelly, or for solution-focused learning, teaching, and research purposes as we suggested. Although we do not fully present it here because of time and media constraints, still we developed a 5-steps protocol which includes a set of about 20 marches. We begin by very briefly and concisely presenting the essence of Kelly's personal construct theory, and then we will move on to describe its integration with solution-focused practice. George Kelly is widely recognized as a foundational thinker in constructivist philosophy. According to his personal construct theory, individuals develop tentative models of or sort of personal theories to interpret and navigate in their environments. These models allow individuals to anticipate events and guide their attitudes and behaviors. Personal theories are tested against experiences. If they fail to provide meaningful interpretations, they are revised or discarded. Conversely, successful theories effectively organize perceptions, enabling individuals to predict and explain outcomes. These personal theories are structured around bipolar continuums between desired and undesired outcomes. Desired outcomes refer to events perceived as producing positive results, whereas undesired outcomes are associated with negative consequences. By categorizing experiences within this dichotomous framework, individuals plan and act in ways they believe will serve their best interests. These constructs are shaped by each individual's unique life experiences and are continuously refined in response to new information and experiences.
Just before we move on to questions or to comments, and in order to do it a little more illustrative, we provide here an example, the first example, in which we show how actually George Kelly's personal construct theory works. It works through what George Kelly called the repertory grid. Usually it's written in brief rep grid, but we call it the repertory grid. And the repertory grid has 4 main components we would like to present. The first element is the topic. The topic relates to the central issue that a client, while talking with the client, that the client raises. For example, as written here, I wish I could spend more quality time with my beloved ones. So we write at the top of the repertory grid the issue the client wants to deal with. In solution-focused terms, we relate to it as the best hope or the preferred future or that's it. That's what I remember now. The second group of components in George Kelly's repertory grid, in George Kelly's theory, are those which we call the elements, element 1, element 2, element 3, and in additional slides we will see further elements. each such an element reflects a situation or an instant that is relevant to the topic. An instant, for example, today or at the end of the therapy, I'll be satisfied with, or I hope that in a month I will. So these are elements, and additional elements today can be, for example, when I'm alone, when I'm with people, when I reflect about things at night, when I wake up in the morning. Different elements are different instances or situations in which I relate to the topic. The third group of components, which includes George Kelly's repertory grid, are what he used to call as constructs. Constructs are criteria by which a person judges his experience, and it is judged according to along a continuum with two edges. I'm going the solution-focused way, the desired outcome. I will be more active, I will be more tolerant, I will be more something I wish. And the opposite side, the opposite edge of the same continuum is I will feel resentful instead of I will be more active, or I will act impatiently instead of I will be more tolerant. Now, these two opposites are decided, are formulated by the client from his perception, the way he sees it, and using his words. So here we take the very principles of solution focused and we already apply them even before we have started to explain. We have the best wish and we have signs of progress or signs that let me know that my part of my preferred future is already here. The third elements, or the fourth element, if I'm not mistaken, are the elements. The elements are, in fact, tools that can provide us with distinct situations and instances. And as we will see later, it can serve as a tool for measuring exceptions, for receiving what in solution focused we call exceptional moments or exceptional instances where the problem is less present. So we use it. But here you can see how interesting the George Kelly's repertory grid provides, because, for example, my wish is to spend more quality time with my beloved ones. How will you know that you spend more positive time? I will be more active when being with them. And when I'm thinking about it today, I am at the scale at 4, using the scaling questions we know from solution focus. But at the end of therapy, I will satisfied with being only 7. I do not expect to be 10. And it's interesting because at post-intervention measurement, 4 weeks later, I found that I was 6, and now it's my decision. Would I like to continue working on progress, or would I like to stay here? This is an example of the use of George Kelly's repertory grid. I'm moving to the next slide just to make it concisely, very clear, to emphasize the 4 elements. There is a topic we're working upon in solution focus, the best wish. There are the elements, situations or instances relevant to the topic on which we can measure your scaling position, and constructs, bipolar criteria used for evaluation of the experience, which we relate to as signs of progress or of the solution being there, and ratings as we know them from the scaling questions. At the following repertory grid, the only difference between the first one is that this time we're talking about situational elements, not temporal elements like today, tomorrow, a week from now, but These are situations while alone, while with friends, at night, and so forth. And the ratings can always relate to a conjunction between the construct. For example, I want to feel more relaxed. How do you know you'll be more relaxed? I will feel more physically comfortable, or I will have pleasant thoughts. So here, the repertory grid provides you with an ability to rate at each while alone. How do you feel? While with friends, at night. And of course, it can offer us a measurement along time, both qualitative, change along the scale, and quantitative, because many times the constructs may change, because what I found as a useful sign at the beginning session, at the first session, at the main session, now a month later I say, oh, there are other signs that have appeared that I wasn't aware of, and other signs are now irrelevant. And this can provide us with additional quantitative information. That's the idea of, very briefly, very concisely, I apologize, of George Kelly's theory and George Kelly's Yoram, do we stop for a second for a question? Do I stop the sharing and we give time for questions?
I think it would be a nice idea just to have a look and see if there are any questions or some asking about clarification that we can add.
Any questions? Any comments? Any ideas? Okay, yes.
If I can say something, I'm trained as a solution-focused practitioner and also as a personal construct psychologist. So I came here to hear something. So because I wanted to combine something in order to evaluate progress in solution focus, and I think this is very interesting approach. And we use repertory grid in somewhat different manner, but I like how you adjusted to use it to implement solution focus element. Yeah.
This is so thrilling and nice for you to be here.
Yeah.
And we would be very, very happy if we could learn how you merge them, or how you relate them, or how you use them, to learn from your experience. If it's okay, at the end of the session, if we can stay and check if we can consult your experience.
I'm not still. I am considering to combine it in the future, but I didn't done it already.
Okay, but you're very familiar with both the theories. Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Any additional? I'm really thrilled you're here. I must tell you, to know that you know both theories and you find interesting the idea. It means that it doesn't work in the vacuum, that it has some echo in the world. Interesting. Okay, so we continue.
I would have a question. So let's call it a kind of newcomer in the solution-focused methodology. So the question I have, what is really new, of course, could it be, if I understand correctly, that it is a kind of systematic screening we could go for, or and what from my point of view could be new is that we do not really have, scaling desired outcomes, but also undesired outcomes, what we usually don't do when going for the solution focused methodology. Do I understand correctly?
To say the truth, we prefer the desired edge of the continuum, because this is more solution focused oriented. But what we do use the negative edge because many times clients prefer to formulate their best wish in terms of no longer having pain or being less anxious and then what we do is we respect and we record on the left side of the repertory grid their wish. But then we ask them, could you please reformulate it by using an instead question? And instead of feeling or thinking, what would you? And then at the end, we do just like in solution focused in any other solution focused practice, we relate only to the positive edge. But we do respect it and we write it.
Okay.
I will emphasize from what Yaron said, I just love the sentence. Like in a restaurant, when you don't like something and the waiter says, okay, what would you like instead? So the sentence, what would you like instead? I find myself always, many times using it when someone speaks to me in negative terms. Like saying, okay, you don't like that, or you don't prefer that, or you don't want that. What would you like instead? And I find that this is a powerful question because I don't have to tell him, don't speak negatively, speak only positively. I will never say that because when I say don't speak to me negatively, I'm being negative with that sentence. So I love very much as I said, the sentence, the question, what would you like instead? And that I find very helpful and useful.
Okay. So it's not that you proactively would like to work with the undesired outcomes in the sense of finding out where the good is in the worst case, for example.
Oh, this is very important. We do, because, for example, when we work with terminally ill, or with persons with chronic pain, or with other conditions. Now, during the Middle East is very stormy now. So while working with people in unbearable conditions and continuous unbearable conditions, we do not claim to change the situation, but the best wish is defined or is formulated within these conditions. What is the best hope you would like to? Absolutely, you're very right. This is exactly what we follow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yaron. Thank you. If someone says to me, I suffer very much, and his best hope would be to suffer less, that might be enough for me. I don't have to force him to say positive, delightful terms in order to continue the work with him.
You're right, but then maybe a question could be, and what signs will let you know that you suffer less? What will you do more when you suffer less? And what will you be more available to? What will change in your life if you suffer more? If you suffer less? You wanted to say something, Mariana, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if you share your repertory grid with your client or not, or just for your use. I'm wondering, it could be useful, maybe monitoring tool for them to use in between sessions.
Yeah, never repeat us, and it's not recorded the session. Oh, yes, it is. Never repeat and never mention the fact that we say it, but we did borrow from the narrative therapy the idea that sometimes writing a letter to the client or providing with a present or giving him such a document, it may reflect the process, it may evoke and stimulate a process of reflection within himself. We believe it's a wonderful post-session tool, but evidently it depends upon the client, his needs, his wishes. But this is open-made and it's very clear and it's put on the table between us. So absolutely, yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, yeah. Yes, Olympia.
I like this process because I have never come across the grid before, but I find it useful because as a practitioner, it helps me also manage my mind and be more detailed in my questions. And I was wondering, I like the concept of elements and the temporal and situational. And are there other elements that beyond that, or just those?
These are the main elements of George Kelly's repertory grid. But if you feel that something misses, and even if you don't know yet to formulate what misses, we would be very interested to listen, because sometimes, the associations can contribute to thought, something that we missed. So it's a very interesting question. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, we continue.
Yes.
I fear now that I know the audience is somewhat very acquainted with the solution focus. So perhaps we present it the way we understand it on the next slide. You want to continue, Yoram? Is it okay? I start sharing?
Yes.
Okay. Share. Share. That's it.
Okay. So there are several ways to describe the essence of the solution focus practice, and its practice. In the current slide, we choose to focus mainly on what we perceive as central tenets to which we would like to conform the application of the repertory grid. The first principle we go along with is that a major purpose of our solution focus activity with clients aims to stimulate and focus their attention on their preferred futures. We assume that the more detailed and verbally formulated their wishes become during the session, the more probable are these to be recognized and realized in their lives following the solution focus session. An additional set of principles we try to strictly adhere to is the respecting position of the therapist toward the client. We believe that from an interactionist perspective, the trusting and collaborating position of the therapist towards the client has the benefit of enhancing so many virtues within the client, such as self-esteem, self-efficacy, internal locus of control, belief in him, herself, and probably more. All these benefits are dependent upon one major mode of practice: genuine respect. We believe that as long as the use of the repertory grid conforms these ideas, it can be constructively integrated in the solution focus practice. In the next slide, we start diving into the application of the repertory grid in solution focus practice.
Okay, I'm trying to move the slide. I think I did something wrong. Okay, that's it. Okay, so we have, we said it at the beginning, I apologize for repeating it. We have 5 steps, which each step includes several marches. We do not specify all the marches because it's too much information. It's a little overwhelming, but we do define the steps. And at the end of the session, if someone will want to know specifically what we mean when we say about, when we talk about 20 marches, we can share with you the draft of an article in which it is specified, but it's just a draft for the moment of an article. So the 5 steps begin with step 1, defining the topic. And you can easily recognize in what I will now say, the solution-focused way, very much of the brief institute protocol of doing things as they've published in 20, I think it was 2017 and later, and in Chris Iveson article in 2012 and later. Defining the topic, it means that we ask the client to formulate a wish in their own words. For example, I want to manage my diabetes effectively. This becomes the starting point for the grid, and we record and formulate the wish in the rap grid. When we say we formulate, in fact, we use the client's formulation. We try to adhere to his language. Very important. It validates, it has many benefits in doing so. And as you can see in the table below, I have marked in red, I want to manage my diabetes. And since this may be a little too general, we further ask him, and how would you define, these are the clusters, how would you define managing effectively the diabetic? And he says, I wish I could feel much more relaxed, for example. I wish I could feel less eager to eat sugar, and so forth. And so this is step one, defining the topic or the best wish, or contracting in brief terms. Step two is defining the constructs. And it's very similar to asking the questions, what signs of progress and success will you recognize? And for example, one example he gave us is feeling physically comfortable versus having a neck pain, having pleasant thoughts instead of pessimistic thoughts. And we convert, this is something we answered before, so I'll do it briefly. We convert problem talk into solution talk, which is a matter by itself. We lectured about this very specific issue last year while relating to negative ruminations versus positive ruminations. But I just mentioned it, I will not refer. And of course, we record what we have done. And then we have step three. Step three is identifying elements. Some elements we ask the client to provide us with, and other elements are those we suggest as clinicians. And here we include past, present, future scenarios, and or find contrasting situations in daily life in which attitudes and behaviors may behave in a different manner. And we record each of these instances and situations as a distinct element. For example, at this moment, in the past 3 days, when alone, while at work, before I got ill, I will satisfy at the end of therapy with, and so forth. So this is step three, identifying the elements. And then we apply ratings. We use the very well-known 1 to 10 scale for client self-assessment, the visual analog scale, the VAS, and we rate each element against each construct. For example, while alone, my pain neck hurts me 4, or I feel physically comfortable 5 at night, compared to 1 while with friends. And this can provide us with information about exceptions, about moments where the problem is less present. So this is an illustration of how we can use all the elements in order to receive all the information we usually gather during a solution-focused practice. And it reflects best to the client, we believe. It reflects very clearly to the client his alterations along time, temporal alterations, and situational alterations. And finally, we also use it in reassessment, we repeat the ratings at T2 at time 2. For example, 4 weeks following the first session or 3 months following the session. And this provides us with longitudinal changes along the time. Yoram, is it okay if I stop sharing here and we open it for questions?
Yes, and we have about 15 more minutes, so let's...
Yes, good.
Does it mean that so this is a systematic approach to start with wishes, constructs, elements, and then the ratings, one after the other, which would be quite strict structure? Or how to do that? Would you have a sheet in front of you and then every time, writing down, the interaction in the sheet to fill in the sheet? Would this be the process then, or?
It's an interesting question because the order by which we ask questions has rules according to our perception. And the rules follow the principle of induction, of like hypnotic induction. We believe that several questions may lead more easily to the following questions. And sometimes we prefer beginning with specific questions rather to, we do not have sufficient experience in utilizing the repertory grid in clinical situation, but rather in research situations. So I want to answer very carefully and to say as long as we feel that it doesn't contradict the inductive ideas, the order is probably no importance, only to be sure that the client knows what we're doing, knows the rationale of what we're doing, doesn't get lost in this complex idea.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's yeah.
I would like, Yaron, I would like to answer in another way. Not. I listened very attentively to your question, Kurt, and some of the words using are George Kelly's terms, not the solution focus terms. So if we found George Kelly's repertory grid useful because it goes along with the solution focus practice. It's not contradictory, so we can use it. But again, it's not fully parallel. So, for example, the word rating that we use here today is George Kelly's word. Okay, in solution focus, I never used it. It might be similar to scaling, the scaling question. But so then again, so if you ask me, not Yaron, but if you ask me, do you have a protocol of working? The answer would be yes, but it would not be George Kelly's protocol. It would be my Steve DeShazer protocol, the brief protocol, but not George Kelly's. So the main use, and we'll probably repeat it later on, we now use it, Yaron and I, for research. But we found it useful also for documenting. For example, I finish a session and I want to write down a few notes after the session. I can use the repertory grid in order to make some order around what happened in the session.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not either or, it's different kind of use of the repertory grid.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm asking on your behalf and answering on my behalf. So why use the repertory grid? Because it's a very good tool we found that can be useful and that it goes along with the solution focus. It does not break the solution focus idea, nor change its known procedures.
I think it's time for benefits, limitation, constraints, commands.
Yes.
So I start sharing.
Okay. So the benefits of the solution focus repertory grid are as follows, and it says here in the slide, honors the client's language and worldview. Simply said, we don't use our words, we use the client's words. That implies their worldview. Another benefit is that it helps us organize complex reflections in a systematic way. It blends clinical and research applications I mentioned earlier and enhances both practice and evaluation. The challenges and limitations are time consuming. It takes time, at least in our experience, and it may cause fatigue. It requires precise articulations of the constructs. We have to pay attention to them. Another one is a data aggregation that compromises authenticity. And finally, needs skill, practice, and professional delicacy and sensitivity. Future requirements would be that it requires additional experiment for further learning, learning its potential clinical contributions and constraints, and of course requires it's a larger scale of cases in which the repertory grid will be used in research and outcome evaluations to be further validated as a measurement tool.
And this is the moment we really need comments. We really need your associations, your thoughts.
From my own experience, even if someone thinks, I don't have any comment whatsoever, we would like to hear it. Thank you.
This is a very important comment.
Yeah. So
I have nothing to say.
So as said, once again, as a kind of newcomer, my thoughts are it's an interesting systematic approach when it comes to evaluation after the session. So the notes or the audio, so we can really systematically, find out what's at stake and what happened by using this scheme here, 1, 2, 3, 4. The elements and the construct, usually we ask the question, what difference would that make? And then that person would would probably combine element and construct. What difference would that make? Oh, tomorrow I would feel more comfortable when communicating with my colleague. So I can find, there are parallels between these two approaches.
And this is very interesting what you've just said, because it provides a very clear, and this is something we didn't think about, the ability to identify conjunctions between elements and constructs.
So this is a first guess, and what comes to my mind. And I would find it very helpful if one could differentiate the element more. You mentioned time and situational or context. It would help us maybe if we could support the process by being aware of what could be the situational, the situations. Maybe we would ask specifically, is it when you're alone or with friends, as you mentioned it in the chart, so that we could maybe support the process if it's difficult for the client, to elaborate, that we could give hints in a way or be aware. Yes, what kind, in which, which categories it could. Two of them is pretty. It's not very much, time and context. Of course, context. It's a huge field. Context, but very interesting. This is what comes to my mind. Yeah.
Yes, what I'm thinking about, I know the Repertory grid interview in the qualitative research for a research method. So I'm just thinking about how it's now using in a therapy. Well,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they are very interesting. There's a very interesting work about all kind of qualitative analysis methods for use of measuring change in therapy using the repertory grid, changing themes, and absolutely. Yeah, Olympia.
Yeah, well, building on something that Kurt mentioned about the temporal elements importance for measurement, I was thinking that I would like to experiment with having a more detailed description as to what happens after we leave the session, and then this ranking or scaling has a description. Then at 4, at 7, in 4 times in 4 weeks' time. So I would kind of add into that little box what the client would like to see differently happening. That's one idea. Perhaps it's already there, but just occurred to me.
Anna, how does what we presented here meet all that you know? And I guess you know quite a lot about George Galli and
yeah, around that structure, Kurt, George Galli was the engineer, so that is a source maybe of that strict structure, but George Galli in his work wasn't so structured. His theory is very complex, and you made it really simple and easy to understand, and this was very inspiring because in Serbia, I don't know if you can hear me because my connection is unstable. In Serbia, I am a lot dismissed as a solution-focused practitioner because I'm the only one practicing solution-focused in Serbia, and I, especially in personal conscious psychology community. So I was thinking about using their techniques to prove the efficacy of solution focus. So I must use it as a weapon of revenge in some research.
Yeah, using something familiar in order to induce something which is a little unfamiliar. Interesting.
Yeah. Thank you for this. It was really nice presentation.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, Yaron, we are close to the boundary of time, so you can show the last slide.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we would be very grateful, very, very grateful if you feel that you can share with us, we have here some contact details. If you can share with us your thoughts, ideas. I think that very much like in Serbia and Israel, there's a relatively minority of practitioners working with the solution-focused therapy. And this is why we gathered together a small group of people. And I will secretly share with you that one of the one of the observers of the participants in our session now has just written me a message, and I'm very glad you're there, Idan. He wants to join us in our work together, and we would be, and if you stay done after the session, we will have a small talk if it's okay with you. And we would very much like you to contact us. We really need this sharing with people from other places, from other ideas, from other thoughts. It enriches the entire solution-focused practice with do. Something more, Yoram?
Thank you. I want to thank everyone. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about, not just to present, but being able to answer or suggesting always another angle beyond the specific written slides. And it's a continuous conversation. My first in conference, international conference, was in 2003, and I enjoy the evolvement of the solution focused talk all over the world. So let's continue with it. Thank you.